I have 5 years to get my life together. Here are 3 easy ways I'm going to do this.
The Leading Like a Lady podcast was created to remind Black women, young and old, that acting like a lady is exactly what the world needs. Don't forget to subscribe to the blog so that you receive updates on when we post directly to your email.
Life after 40 for a man equals the sweet life. More, parentheses, white Caucasian men over that age stay employed longer and get paid more by their bosses compared to literally everyone else. Heck, if they wanted to, they could do almost everything they want, be it retire early or fly into space. I, on the other hand, need to get my life together in the next 5 years because life after 40 for a woman looks more like having nothing to live for. Dramatic, but also true. I wake up every day worried I'll never amount to anything, especially as a Black woman. There are exceptional exceptions to this rule. For example, a 20-year-old slave girl published a book of poetry that went viral globally when social media would sound like a science fiction project. Beyoncé released her first #1 album at 22 and became the most awarded musician in history, just in time for 40. Unlike them, most Black women's personal and professional trajectories are stagnated. Last year, I learned taking control of your life is possible, to an extent. There are a handful of things you can do to get your act together through self-development, setting goals, and developing plans. You know what the universe periodically says to that? Fuck your plans. At any moment, pandemics, war, inflation, poor health, or just miserable people atomize those plans, barely leaving anything big enough to pick back up and start again, especially when you're a Black woman, underpaid, overworked, and deprecated. I want I want us to fall out of this cycle. Unfortunately, the universe will always conspire against the least of us until power and privilege gets boring for men. Don't hold your breath. I discovered 3 tricks, at least, to get your life as close to where you want it to be in the next 5 years, despite whatever the devil throws your way. Step number 1, care about fewer things. I mean this personally, professionally, and in the minutiae you don't even realize you dwell over. Also, we have to be really clear that this looks different based on class, ethnicity, and geography. Black women are not a monolith. Depending on where we live, we all have different cares, and depending on which state of life we're at, the cares that we hoard vary. The way that we care, depends on who births us, who raised us, who educated us, and who befriended us. In an altruistic yet farcical way, I wanted to carry every single care every Black woman has ever had. I wanted to rescue the Black women living in rural, abject poverty. I wanted the corporate Black women to rage against the capitalistic machine. I wanted cliquish Black women to learn how to genuinely love each other as sisters. And my cache is full. I caught myself holding on to all the ways Black women are socialized to internalize these situations. And I thought about publishing a manifesto in a language that we could all understand and execute in sync to achieve this diasporic utopia of my dreams. #formation. A hefty goal to carry over the next 5 years. It'll only get heavier in the future with digitized, misogynoir, democratically elected fascists, and modern imperialist agendas growing in size and weight, which will crush little old 120-pound me to bits. So, how do I decide what I don't give a fuck about anymore? I'll tell you using step number 2. Step number 2, choose one someday goal. Do I want to be in a certain tax bracket? Do I want to start a revolution? Do I want 100% autonomy over when I wake up and how I spend my day? Am I okay with living in total isolation off the grid? Or do I want to maximize my social network? What am I okay with happening someday in the future, preferably before I die? Think about that, choose one, and only give a fuck about that. Well, that's an extreme. Please maintain the basic cares of personal hygiene, physical and mental health, and, money management so that you can survive. But on a self-actualization level, though, find one thing and shut everything else down. With one someday goal, you're focused. You have the destination. Now you just plug it into the GPS and you get going. Whether this someday goal is political, self-centered, or philanthropic, I want you to remember 3 things. Number 1, the ops. For those of you who don't know, that means the opposition. For better or worse, are conspiring against you. Number 2, ask yourself, are you ready to do anything in your power to fight against these foes? And number 3, per question number 2, is it worth it? One of the fucks I gave away is concern over other people's ethics. I'm not omnipotent, I'm not omniscient, and I'm not rich enough to stop all the harm that will, regrettably, come to a community I love and belong to. However, with renewed sense of the one thing that I can't let go of, I'm willing to put all my psychic energy into accomplishing it. If you want to know what that is, subscribe to my YouTube channel, going to be linked below, and my Substack newsletter to follow the journey. Step 3, burn bridges. I had this epiphany while walking across a bike path that crosses the Hudson onto Randall's Island. You get a different vibe going north, south, or east of that area in Harlem or the Upper East Side. I noticed which type of people I felt most comfortable with on either side of each demarcation. And then I quickly decided the ones I'd fuck with and the ones I'd leave alone. That's my New York City metaphor to describe what I mean by burning bridges. I mean cutting off pathways that lead back to those who aren't the best companions for the path you're on for the next 5 years. That doesn't mean being hostile and purposely pissing people off as you move on. You don't have to, but being honest with them about how your relationship, whether it be platonic, romantic, or professional, no longer fits with where you're going
is recommended.
This is my response to the maddening way that I inserted myself into any and every networking opportunity last year. If I maximize the number of people in my network, I maximize my chances of scoring the goal. That's what I thought. Putting your limited eggs, e.g. fucks, into every basket you find is not as valuable as strategically placing them in the right baskets. And 1 or 2 will do. Making a hard left back to the road bridges metaphor. You will drive around in circles, constantly missing your next turn if you don't exit the roundabout and set fire to any path that'll tempt you to return back to where you left. Last year, I crossed over into too many communities and friendships simply because I had a bridge there. For example, a colleague or an acquaintance who wanted to lead me across. I wasted a lot of time and achieved nothing when entering without a clear intention on what I came to do, what I cared about, and whether this group cared about it in the same way. Black women deal with loneliness on levels higher than any other group, and I was living proof. Wanting to find and belong to a tribe led me to desperate decisions, setting me so far back that I'm doing 100 on the highway to get my life back on track this year. No more picking up hitchhikers unless they can prove that they're going my way. No more pit stops on roads that crisscross and probably lead to dead ends. If I'm lucky, all the things I do and say this year will scare off the wrong people crossing into my lane and instead will attract the right people that can't resist the joyride that I'm on.
Don't forget to subscribe to the blog so that you receive updates on when we post directly to your email.